Alright, so the last time I ran this AI trading tournament, a lot of you guys commented saying the setup wasn't fair, since each AI got different charts and different entries. And honestly, you're right. So in this version, we're fixing that. This time, every AI gets the exact same chart setup, same market conditions, and same entry point. That way, we can finally see which AI actually performs best when everything is completely equal. Now, because I'm using identical setups, I can't really do this on a live account. It wouldn't make sense since the price keeps moving in real time. So instead, I'll be running all of these trades through a backtesting app. That way, every AI's logic and strategy gets tested under the exact same environment. Same chart, same setup, same rules. No excuses this time. Alright, just like last time, we've got our 4 AIs lined up. ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Claude AI, and DeepSeek AI. They'll be facing off in a simple knockout-style tournament. Here's the bracket. Match 1, ChatGPT versus Claude AI. Match 2, Gemini versus DeepSeek. Alright, so here's how this version of the tournament is going to work. Each AI gets 3 setups, all based on the exact same chart, exact same entry point, and exact same conditions. That means there's 0 advantage for anyone. At the end of those 3 setups, we'll total up the balance for each AI, and the one with the higher profit moves on to the next round. Pretty straightforward, right? Each AI will start with a $1,000 balance. They'll all get the exact same chart screenshot, same time frame, same market, and same entry price. I'll send each one the exact same prompt, for education purposes only. Based on this GBPUSD H1 chart, the current price is blank. My account balance is $1,000. Please tell me whether I should instant buy or sell, and provide entry price, stop loss, take profit, lot size with proper risk management, and a short reason for that entry. Assume only one trade at a time. This way, we can see exactly how each AI thinks under pressure, how they manage risk, how far they push their targets, and whether their reasoning actually makes sense for a real trader. Since I'm using the same setup for all 4 AIs, I'll be running everything through a backtesting app, so we can skip the waiting and see the results instantly. Alright, everything's set. 4 AIs, same chart, same rules, same risk. Only one can come out on top. Let's kick off the first matchup, ChatGPT versus Claude AI. Alright, for the first matchup, we've got ChatGPT taking the chart. Same process like the last tournament. I'm going to take a screenshot of the GBPUSD 1-hour chart, then send it over to ChatGPT with a simple prompt asking for a full trade setup. Now that we've got ChatGPT's first response, here's what it came up with. It's calling for a sell entry at 1.35531, with stop loss up at 1.35880 and take profit down at 1.35030, risking roughly 2% of our $1,000 account. Now here's the logic behind the trade. ChatGPT says price is showing bearish rejection after a strong bullish push near 1.3590. Those last few red candles have big bodies, small wicks, a clear sign of selling pressure. And structurally, it's looking for a short-term pullback back toward that 1.3500 support zone. So yeah, we're basically fading the exhaustion here, expecting that minor down move before price possibly resets. Let's drop the order in and see how this plays out. And there it is. Clean push straight down into take profit. TP smashed. That's plus $29.21 profit on the very first trade. Balance jumps to $1,029.21. Strong start from ChatGPT. Calm. Calculated. No drama. Let's see if it can keep that momentum on the next setup. Alright, so after that clean win from the first setup, I took another screenshot of the chart and dropped the same prompt into ChatGPT, just to see what kind of setup it would spot this time. ChatGPT came back with a buy signal at 1.35698, with a stop loss down at 1.35300, and a take profit target up at 1.36380, still keeping risk around 2%, and said the setup had a risk to reward of about 1 to 1.75. According to ChatGPT, price had just broken out of a consolidation zone, showing strong bullish momentum. It expected a quick pullback to retest that broken resistance, before pushing higher toward the 1.3630 to 1.3650 zone. Sounded solid, a classic breakout retest idea. So I placed the trade exactly as it suggested. But this time, the market had other plans. Price barely held that retest before rolling over and taking out the stop loss. So yeah, this one ended in a loss, and the account balance dropped down to $1,008.63. Not the end of the world, but that winning streak is gone. Let's see if ChatGPT can bounce back on the next setup. After that loss on the second setup, I grabbed another screenshot and sent it back to ChatGPT for one final signal. This time, it came back bullish again. A buy entry at 1.36438, stop loss down at 1.36050, and take profit all the way up at 1.37100 and 2% risk, targeting a 1 to 1.7 risk-reward ratio. ChatGPT explained that price was holding strong above the 1.3620 support zone, and the recent sideways movement looked like a bullish flag, which usually leads to another upward impulse. So yeah, it was banking on trend continuation. I went ahead and executed the trade, and this time it absolutely nailed it. Price pushed cleanly through, smashed take profit, and the balance jumped up to $1,043.04. That means ChatGPT finishes its round with 2 wins and 1 loss, ending with a solid profit overall. ChatGPT. Final balance, $1,043.04. Now it's time for the next contender, Claude AI. Just like before, I grabbed the same chart screenshot from ChatGPT and dropped it into Claude with the exact same prompt. No excuses this time, same entry point, same setup, same conditions. Claude came back with a sell idea at 1.35531, stop loss at 1.35831, and take profit all the way down at 1.34931. It's keeping risk at 2% of the $1,000 account, so about $20 on the line. According to Claude, price had just formed a clear bearish reversal pattern near the 1.35800 resistance zone. It mentioned that the strong red candle breaking below the previous highs shows rejection from the top, and that momentum was starting to flip bearish. Basically, it expected the market to slide back toward the 1.35000 psychological level. So I went ahead and executed the trade. And honestly, Claude started strong. Price dropped cleanly, hit take profit, and the account closed out with a nice win. Balance now up to $1,040. Solid first round from Claude. Let's see if it can keep this up for setup number 2. For the second setup, Claude flipped its bias completely. This time, it wanted to go long, a buy entry at 1.35698, with the stop loss tucked just 30 pips below at 1.35398, and take profit sitting 60 pips higher at 1.36298. Risk stayed consistent, 2% of the updated balance, around $20.80. Claude said the chart was showing a bullish breakout pattern, noting how price had just broken above the resistance zone around 1.35600 to 1.35800 after a tight consolidation phase near that cyan support area. Sounded reasonable enough, so I placed the trade. But unfortunately, this one didn't go the way Claude expected. Price dipped back down, hit the stop loss clean, and that's a loss, bringing the balance down to $1,019.20. Not the end of the world though. Claude still has one more setup left to turn things around. For the third and final setup, Claude went back to its original bias, a sell. It called for a short entry at 1.36438, stop loss up at 1.36738, 30 pips buffer, and take profit down at 1.35838, risking roughly 2% of the $1,019 balance, so about $20.38. Claude said the chart was flashing a bearish reversal after that extended rally. It highlighted a few key factors: a double top pattern around the 1.36600 to 1.36700 zone. Basically, it was expecting a short-term pullback. But not this time. Price pushed straight through the resistance and hit the stop loss, closing the trade in the red. That brings Claude's balance down to $998.82. So after 3 trades, Claude ends with 1 win and 2 losses, finishing slightly under break-even. Now, if we drop both results into our tournament bracket, ChatGPT walks away with the first win of this round. Its total balance after 3 setups sits at $1,043.04, while Claude ends at $998.82. That means ChatGPT advances to the next stage and Claude is officially knocked out of the tournament. Alright, moving on to our second matchup, we've got Google Gemini facing off against DeepSeek AI. Now, if you watched the last tournament, you'll know Gemini had a pretty rough run. It started strong on paper, but the actual results, not so great. So I'm really curious to see if it can redeem itself this time, especially now that everything's perfectly fair. Just like before, I'll start by taking a screenshot of the chart and sending it to Gemini with the exact same prompt. Now here's what Gemini came back with for its first setup. It's going for a buy at around 1.34430, stop loss down at 1.34180, take profit up at 1.34930, risking just about 1% of the $1,000 account. And according to Gemini, the logic here is pretty simple. It's expecting a continuation of the short-term uptrend, betting on a breakout from the current consolidation zone. So, I went ahead and placed the trade, and this time, Gemini actually nailed it. Price pushed up cleanly, hit take profit, and that's a win right out of the gate. Balance now sits at $1,020. A solid start, way smoother than its performance in the last tournament. Let's see if it can keep this streak going in setup number 2. Alright, so after that clean first win, it's time for Gemini's second setup. Just like before, I sent the chart screenshot over to Gemini and asked for a fresh signal. And here's what it came up with this time. Gemini's calling for a sell entry at around 1.34717. Stop loss sitting just above at 1.34967. And take profit down at 1.34217, still risking about 1% of the $1,020 balance. The reasoning behind this one is pretty straightforward. Price is testing a major resistance zone, and Gemini expects a bearish rejection or short-term pullback from that area. So, I went ahead and placed the trade, and once again, Gemini delivers. Price reversed exactly where it predicted, dropped straight into our take profit zone, and that's back-to-back wins for Google Gemini. Balance now climbs up to $1,040.40. Definitely a strong start compared to the last time we tested it. Let's see if Gemini can finish this round strong with setup number 3. Alright, moving on to Gemini's third and final setup of the round. After those 2 solid wins earlier, I sent the new setup of chart screenshot back to Gemini one last time to see what it would do next, and this time it decided to flip bullish. Gemini's signal was a buy entry around 1.33726, with a stop loss at 1.33426 and a take profit target up at 1.34326, still keeping risk tight at 1% of the $1,040 balance. The logic behind this one makes sense. Gemini was expecting a short-term correction after a strong drop, basically trying to catch a bounce off the structure level around 1.3370, which it identified as a potential weekly pivot zone. But this time, the market had other plans. Instead of bouncing, price just kept sliding lower, hitting our stop loss and taking Gemini's first loss of the match. So, after 3 setups in total, Gemini finishes this round with 2 wins and 1 loss, ending the session at $1,030. Still a positive result overall, but now it's time to see if DeepSeek AI can do even better in the next matchup. Alright, now let's move on to DeepSeek AI, the final challenger in this round. Just like before, I give the exact same first screenshot that was sent to Google Gemini to DeepSeek. Same chart, same setup, same conditions. And here's what it came back with for setup 1. DeepSeek suggested a sell entry around 1.3445, with a stop loss at 1.3485 and a take profit target down at 1.3380, risking 1% of the $1,000 balance. The reasoning was actually quite logical. It wanted to short the retest of a broken support turned resistance inside a clean downtrend. Basically, The AI was betting that the bearish momentum would continue, and that the rejection near that zone would push price lower again. But not this time. Price bounced instead of dropping, tapped the stop loss, and DeepSeek took its first hit of the match, bringing the balance down to $990. So, not the start it was hoping for. But there are still 2 more setups to go, and we've seen before that DeepSeek can bounce back hard. Alright, moving into DeepSeek setup number 2. And once again, I used the same chart setup that Google Gemini got. This time, DeepSeek flipped its bias. It called for a buy entry at 1.3472, with a stop loss placed down at 1.3445, and a take profit up at 1.3525, risking just 1% of the $990 balance. The logic behind the trade actually made sense. DeepSeek was trying to buy the bounce from a dynamic trendline support inside what it saw as a strong short-term uptrend. Momentum, according to its reading, was favoring the bulls, so the setup was aiming to catch that continuation push higher. But unfortunately, the market didn't agree. Price dipped instead of bouncing, took out the stop loss, and that's back-to-back losses for DeepSeek, bringing the balance down further to $980.10. Not looking too great so far, but there's still one setup left. And if we've learned anything from previous tournaments, it's that DeepSeek can sometimes turn it around right at the end. Alright, so that was DeepSeek's third and final setup. This time it went for a sell entry at 1.3375, stop loss up at 1.3405, take profit down at 1.3320, still risking just 1% of the $980 balance. And honestly, this one looked a lot cleaner. DeepSeek was selling the retest of a broken support turned resistance inside a clear downtrend. Momentum was lined up perfectly. The candles were heavy, and for once the timing hit just right. The result? Finally, a win. That trade locked in some profit and lifted DeepSeek's balance back up to $998.07. So after all 3 setups, here's how the second matchup ended. Google Gemini finishes at $1,030. DeepSeek ends at $998.07. That means Gemini takes this round and moves on to the finals. If you've been following the previous tournament, you'll remember last time we had ChatGPT facing Claude, and ChatGPT advanced to the final. This time, the storyline's the same. ChatGPT made it through again, but it's going to meet a new challenger, Google Gemini. So yeah, we've got our grand final matchup locked in, ChatGPT versus Google Gemini. Alright, for the final round, we're starting with ChatGPT. Just like in the previous rounds, I'll grab a quick screenshot first before running the setups through the backtesting app. For the first trade, ChatGPT went with a sell position at 1.3317, stop loss at 1.3365, and take profit at 1.3265, risking 2% of the $1,000 balance, so around $20. The reasoning made sense on paper. The market was still forming lower highs, signaling a downtrend, and the recent bullish candle looked like a small pullback toward resistance around 1.3350 to 1.3360. So ChatGPT tried to short near that area, keeping the stop tight above it. But the market didn't quite agree. Price pushed through the zone before turning, and the trade hit stop loss, dropping the balance down to $980. For the second setup, ChatGPT stayed bearish again. Sell at 1.3420. Stop at 1.3465. Take profit at 1.3365, risking another 2%, $19.60. This one was based on a resistance retest, expecting sellers to step back in near the previous high. ChatGPT was basically aiming to catch a short-term retracement before the trend continued. Unfortunately, the market broke slightly higher before pulling back, so it ended up being another loss, bringing the balance down to $960.40. Now for the third setup, ChatGPT doubled down on its bias. Sell again at 1.3389. Stop loss 1.3435. Take profit 1.3320, risking about $19.21. This time though, it actually nailed it. The reasoning was simple but solid. Price failed to break above 1.3420, formed a lower high, and bearish candles started lining up again. So the momentum flipped back to the sellers, and the trade finally hit take profit, bringing the balance up to $989.22. So after 3 trades, ChatGPT ends the final round with $989.22. Not bad considering the rough start. But it'll all come down to how Gemini performs next. Next up, we'll run Gemini through the same setups and see if it can keep its winning streak alive, or if ChatGPT pulls off a comeback. Alright, now it's Gemini's turn in the grand final. Just like before, I'm using the exact same screenshot setup. No changes, same conditions. Let's see how Gemini handles this one. For the first setup, Gemini is calling for a buy entry at 1.33174, with a stop loss down at 1.32824, and a take profit target up at 1.33874, risking just 1% of the account. It's going against the overall downtrend here, but the logic makes sense. Price was sitting right around a key confluence of support, near the psychological 1.3300 level and a pivot point around 1.3312. Basically, Gemini is looking for a short-term bounce, and it actually nailed it. Price bounced cleanly off the support zone, shot upward, and smashed take profit. That gives Gemini its first win of the final. The balance climbs up to $1,020. Alright, moving on to Gemini's second setup. Same chart, same conditions as ChatGPT's second chart just now. Let's see if it can keep the momentum going. This time, Gemini flips its bias and goes for a sell entry at 1.34216, with a stop loss at 1.34566 and take profit down at 1.33516, still keeping risk tight at around 1% of the account. The reasoning here is solid. Gemini spotted a strong rejection at resistance. You can see it's the same consolidation high from earlier in the session, and the candle structure shows clear bearish pressure building up. But this time, it didn't quite work out. Price faked the rejection, then pushed higher and clipped the stop. That's a loss for this round, bringing Gemini's balance down to $1,009.80. And there it is, Gemini's third and final trade. It went for a buy at 1.33891, with a stop down at 1.33491 and target at 1.34691. The logic made sense, buying the pullback at a new support zone after an upward impulse. But the market had other plans. Price dipped just deep enough to tag the stop before reversing back up. Classic. So after 3 trades each, here's how the final scoreboard looks. ChatGPT finishes with a balance of $989.22. Gemini ends at $999.70. It's super close, but Google Gemini takes the win by less than $11 difference. Honestly, that's wild. Both AI traded under the exact same setup, same entries, same rules, and yet still found completely different ways to manage risk and read the chart. Now, comparing this to our previous tournament, last time, ChatGPT dominated and took the crown. But this time, with a fairer testing system using identical setups through the backtesting app, Gemini actually managed to edge out the win, proving that under equal conditions, it might handle technical pullbacks and timing just a bit better. So, there you have it, the final results of our AI Trading Tournament version 2. If you guys enjoyed this format and want to see a rematch, maybe with new challenges like Grok AI, Chatly AI, or even Mistral, let me know down in the comments. And of course, if you like these experiments where we test strategies, bots, and AI traders, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode. As always, trade smart, stay safe.